Muscadines. Wow.
I had a blast.
Yeah?
It was fun. I enjoyed the
Well, I missed you last time we were here. I was like, man, can you come? And I think you, communication or something.
4 o'clock this morning to leave out to get here. So it was a good long drive in the country. I thought I was going to run out of gas in the middle of the woods. I said, the first gas station, of course, everybody's closed.
Oh, yeah.
So I finally found some gas and made it up here. And then I wasn't sure if I was at the right place, but this place is really cool. I had an absolute ball trying out all the new varieties that are hopefully coming out soon. But they were some good grapes. I really had a blast. If you guys haven't had the opportunity to come up here, hopefully Matt will put it on schedule, or I can remember to put it on my schedule. For you guys, this is the place to be if you're a muscadine grower.
It definitely is, and I'm not the point person. I know the point person. I've kind of followed up with them. Last year we tried to get it going. I think they're wanting to do it maybe every other year. Dean Family Acres. 2 years ago, we were blessed to be able to attend the Muscadine meetup in Tifton, Georgia at the UGA Test Vineyard, and it was such a blessing. We were super excited to be invited to the 2024 event. This is a biannual event and is the place to be if you are interested in cutting edge information on muscadines, both the growing of them and that process, as well as any new varieties that might be coming out. The highlight of the show is really Dr. Connor, who is over the muscadine breeding program at UGA, and he gave an excellent tour and talk, and also shared the ways that they actually breed and the process of that to creating new varieties, which was incredibly insightful. Dr. Sarah Lowter, who is the extension viticulturist, presented an excellent presentation on different pests and diseases for grapes and muscadines, which was also very insightful. The program this year actually started at 8 a.m., which was a great blessing considering that 2 years ago it actually started at about noon and it was just too hot. So we decided to adjust. We got there a little bit early and were able to make sure and see where everything was, look over the schedule, and also get a map. This map shows all the different varieties and also gave us an opportunity to kind of go and taste before the actual tour got started. As always, Dr. Connor was willing to discuss a variety of things. Here he's actually talking a little bit about some of the muscadines that will be coming up and they're testing to see if they're going to release.
It's not bad to eat, but it's hard to ship and keep. This is the plum texture to me. These, when you eat a plum, you know, it's kind of thick, but it breaks apart in your mouth. To me, these have the best mouth feel. These are probably the best to eat straight off the mouth. That's one that's got plum with the neutral skin. So it all eats well. So these are probably mine. These you get in the firm, the more firm, so maybe less enjoyable straight off to eat, but I think they can store that. Still be firm enough. So like these, I'm afraid by the time they're stored,
Yeah, the
This is
skin
almost
seems to be a
hard.
little bit thinner than the other one, right?
Yeah, the skin is thin. There's, if you try, let's see which one. This one is the same texture, but with a thicker skin. You can feel it. It's much harder, firmer berry,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but the skin's not quite as nice.
Oh.
I'll get the free taste.
These are my grad students.
There you go.
They get a special taste. Break the rules for the students.
Mm-hmm.
It was more of an ordeal last time.
Yeah, it was. That's what I was like,
That's what we were
okay, wait
just
a minute.
saying. That heat plus. Oh my god.
Oh,
We brought wide
So
brim
bad.
hats this time, just in case.
yeah, we
I think we'll be all right this time of day, though.
Yeah, this feels
Unless you
better.
hang around for a while.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna be one.
By the way,
Oh, this block.
I enjoy getting all your emails there.
This block is down there, and it's got some of the southern bunch grapes, like Mid-South and Miss Blue, and
Okay.
Daytona, and then hybrids that we've done between.
Okay.
So it's probably
Back in the early 70s, all the grape was right here. In the late 70s, I worked at Port Department, Coast Plains Experiment Station, from 74 to 79. So, which was fun. So. And many stories of crazy stuff that normal folks would not believe happened. So. That's when Cy Harmon was the department head. And
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Sarah Lowter. She's relatively new viticulturist for University of Georgia. She's based in Athens, but it's for the whole state. So she's going to be here today too. If you have viticulture questions, she's a good person to ask. And you'll probably be seeing more of her in the next couple years.
Many of us had met through the Muscadine Growers group over on Facebook, and we've interacted, some of us for like years, some of us for months, but overall it was great to reconnect with folks and meet new friends. We all shared stories about the biggest Muscadine as well as what our favorites were. But bottom line, we were all excited to hear and see exactly what UGA has up and coming to the Muscadine growers.
I want to know what those are.
That is a bit too. But this year it doesn't happen.
Anyway, it's different from Roundup.
Right.
It just kills the leaves that it hits. And see, they've hit some leaves.
Tremendous job with it. Really, when my father-in-law wrote it, it was average, much smaller than that. And they will, if you pick one, if you don't be careful, they'll 10 fall off the vine on the ground. It's the worst one. It's the worst one of shedding from the vine.
Just dropping.
Yeah. By you shaking the vine or
Right.
dropping it. It's very good. It was earliest, it and Terror was the earliest two we had available before UGA come out with Paulk and Ison came out with early fry in the 90s, way around 90, 89 or 90. It and Terror was the two earliest.
Huh.
But now it's probably not quite as early as early fry and Hall.
Now this says Triumph Ison, and that one says Triumph Hours. I wonder if they're just trying to make sure they keep them separated.
I didn't know they were.
Well, and it might just be they wanted to make sure they got the same. You know how it is.
They got the plant from us.
Yep, they got the plant
There's
prices,
just one
and then
trial.
they maybe cultivated themselves.
Yeah. But it's very good. I got it.
For more great questions and answers similar to these, please join us over on the Muscadine Facebook group or shoot us an email at deanfamilyacres@gmail.com.
Now we're going to start down the bronze area. This is the original Scuppernong Muscadine. It was discovered very early on, and it became popularized. It was by far the most planted muscadine for a couple hundred years, and that's because it's bronze, whereas pretty much every other wild muscadine will be black. They like the bronze because if you made juice and wine from it, it had a much better color that lasted longer than the black ones. And it was also fairly large for a wild muscadine. It became so popular that a lot of people consider all bronze types, they call them Scuppernongs. The true Scuppernong is a single cultivar that was isolated from the wild early on. For now, probably I don't see a compelling reason to grow it unless you're a very strong muscadine enthusiast that just wants the original variety. Flesh is very soft, has a wet stem scar. Flavor is good, not great. Productivity, good, not great. We have much better cultivars if you're just looking for something to eat. The reason they're bronze is there's a mutation in a gene, not that makes the pigment, but that transports the pigment from the cytoplasm into the vacuole. If you don't move the colored pigment into the vacuole, then the cell breaks it down. And so these make the pigment, but then it gets broke down because it doesn't get put where it's supposed to get put. And so that's why it's bronze. As we go through those, the next one is Higgins. Higgins is a University of Georgia release. Was quite popular in I think the 50s, early 60s. It was the next size bigger from Scuppernong. It was used extensively in the breeding for things like fry were coming from Higgins. And it's just getting the size bigger. A lot of the large size is coming from the Higgins cultivar. You'll still see this in some of the older vineyards now, but again, there's better varieties out there now. I don't see any reason to plant it. It's fairly disease susceptible, very soft flesh. This is fry. Don't take too much from our fry vine. There is something wrong with it. The leaves often, it looks to me like herbicide damage, but it's the only one showing that damage. I don't understand why it's constantly looking like that. Fry was released in the 60s, or I guess maybe 1970. It was the next size larger, and it was the backbone of the fresh market muscadine industry. When they started planting a large vineyards for fresh market, you'd usually put fry as a female cultivar, and you would put cowart, which is a purple self-fertile, as a pollinator. The fry, the growers liked it. They're still growing it today. It's still popular. Excellent flavor in fry, a nice green color. And one of the big advantages with fry is you could pick it a little bit immature, so it'd be firm, and yet you still have a pretty good flavor in it. Some of them you have to get dead ripe to have a good flavor. Fry will tolerate being picked a little early. That allows them to get a firmer berry through the marketplace. It's especially important if you're selling in like grocery stores, where if they're not familiar with muscadines and you give them a real soft berry, they may think it's overripe and reject it. And so fry allowed the growers to get around that. That's one of the reasons, and we'll show you that after we're done walking through, that we're trying to breed for firmer flesh types to get that firmness so that the grocery stores won't reject the loads for being too soft. Next door is Summit, which is used to some extent in commercial vineyards. It was released to be kind of a fry replacement. It's a little bit smaller than fry, but it's more productive than fry. It's got a bit of a pink color to it. To me, it has a very good flavor. It's been semi-successful. I think the smaller size and the pinkish color has limited its use in the commercial industry to some extent. But if you wanted a good female variety that had good flavor for the mid-season, Summit's not a bad choice. This is Triumph. It's a sister seedling to Summit. It's a softer berry, fairly pink, used a little bit commercially. It's self-fertile. It's not quite as early as Paul, but it's pretty early. A lot of people really like the flavor of Triumph. It's kind of the favorite of several of my technicians. Again, it's got that standard muscadine, soft flesh.
What's the difference between the Isons and ours on Triumph? Just comparing to make sure it's the same?
There's actually no difference. We did the DNA test. It wasn't different. The thing with Triumph is we would see Triumph sometimes and it'd have a big golden berry, which is fairly firm. And other times we'd see it and it had this smaller pinkish berry and was fairly soft. And we thought there was two Triumph in the industry. Mm-hmm. It doesn't appear that there is. It appears that it's crop load specific. So younger vines with a smaller crop load were producing a bigger berry, which seemed more firm. As the vines matured and came along, then it got to be a smaller, pinker berry. That's something we're seeing a lot in the self-fertile varieties, is we will select them and they look big, and then as the vines mature, you get in a smaller size berry over time. This is Terra, which is a seedling of progeny of Triumph. A little bigger berry, more golden color, still fairly soft. It was planted to some extent for the industry, but over time kind of got rejected because the flavor was inconsistent. Sometimes it's very good and sometimes it kind of has an off flavor, what some people described as a dirty flavor.
And I have bought from Paulk Vineyard since 1972. I've bought more muscadines from them than any one single person that never resold one, I bet you. Hundreds and hundreds of cases. But anyway, because I eat a gallon a day. But many times I've went there and asked for Fry and they sold me Terra. The commercial growers love Terra because it don't have as much fruit rot as Fry. It's more productive than Fry, and it's a beautiful muscadine in appearance, but it just ain't a tenth as good as Fry.
Yeah, they're perfect flowers. So they set, the growers would all like to, they started out being a mixture of female varieties and then self-fertile to pollinate the females interspersed. They would love to switch from female to all self-fertile because the crop load is consistent year to year on the self-fertile. The female, most varieties over time, the female at best produce 50 to 60% the amount of berries that a self-fertile does. And that's just simply because they don't get pollinated as well, but it's also because the self-fertiles are actually a mutation of a male plant. So in the wild you have female plants, you have male plants. When they crossed them originally in the breeding, they found out of a large progeny one self-fertile plant, which when you look at it genetically and for other reasons we know that it is actually a male plant which re-established the ability to produce a pistil. So that it has the female organ plus the male pollen that's viable, and that's where you got the self-fertile. The reason that's important is cluster size on the males is bigger than the females. And so because this is in all essential purposes of a male, it has a bigger cluster size. So not only are you getting better pollination, you have a bigger cluster with more flowers per cluster. And so that's why your crop load is high. Now the problem we're getting, and we'll show you that over there, is you can get too much crop, and that is a very big problem with some of these self-fertile varieties. And we'll show you down there what happens with it. This is Hall. This is one of my releases. That's Terra crossed by Fry. The idea was to get a little bit better flavor from the Fry in there and keep the good earliness of the Terra. Hall has been fairly successful for us. It's got a nice golden color. I think it's got a good flavor. In my opinion, it does better in North Georgia and North Carolina than it does in South Georgia. It's a bright color, but it can be difficult to get clean berries if you get a rainy July and August like we've had the last 2 years. You can get a fair amount of ripe rot. The color's bright enough. You will see that rot if it's in there at all. We also have, you'll notice in some of these vines, We have what we think is spray damage on some of them. We'll see it over there a little more. It's a little speckling on it. You can see it on these berries, where you're seeing a little circle. It looks like a water drop on the edge. It's brown around the edge. We believe that to be spray damage. We're still trying to work out exactly where we're getting that damage. But if you're seeing some of that in the hull, again, I think it'd be a good variety in North Georgia. It's a nice early variety and a productive vine. The other one that's used to some extent as an early variety is Early Fry. It can be a very large berry. It's past ripe now. So it can be, you know, your traditional female variety with very large berry size, very good flavor. It's as early at least as Hall. It's been one of my favorites. The productivity is not as high as the self-fertiles, but it's a little hard for me to judge the females because we have a few females surrounded by a lot of perfect varieties, and so they're getting optimum pollination. When you get whole rows, some growers have had good yield with it, other growers it's not yielded as well as they would like. It's a little bit more bronzy, a little bit dirtier look to it than some like Hall or Terra, but very good flavor. All right, in this section, let's go see, let's see on the back. Let's go around and look at Oh My, one of the seedless varieties. This is Oh My. This was bred by a private breeder and it's sold by Gardens Alive. It is one of the few truly seedless muscadine varieties. It was developed by crossing seedless vinifera to muscadine through various back crossings, and we're able to get that seedless gene into muscadine through traditional breeding. That's a fairly big breakthrough. We don't have any seedless genes in the muscadine germplasm, so the ability to get it within muscadine was a very strong breakthrough. I think long-term, seedlessness will be important for muscadine in terms of getting the crop out so that it's known throughout the country instead of just the southeast. When I tell anybody I'm a grape breeder, a muscadine breeder, invariably the first question they ask me is, do you have any seedless ones? So while muscadine enthusiasts may not mind the seeds, the general public really does prefer to have seedless types. Berry size can be medium. In this case, it's fairly small. It's self-fertile, productive. To me, it's got a decent bronze muscadine flavor. It's a fairly nice. I've tried some of their newer selections. They have better ones coming in. I think in the future we'll have better types of seedless to move the industry forward. And that's a good point. If you want to ever know if something's truly a muscadine, because some of the wild grape species look like muscadine and aren't. Muscadine always have a single unbranched tendril. A bunch grape will always have a branched tendril. So that's the easiest way to know if you got a muscadine or a bunch grape.
I'm gonna roll the dice and grow that Florida Onyx in Arkansas.
Roll the dice. I love that. You go roll the dice.
He's just trying to get some UF up there for.
Yeah. He's telling me how he's growing them, especially in the southern part of Arkansas.
It's probably.
So as you're going through your season, you want early, mid, and late. So your early is going to be Triumph or Terra or Hall, early Fry. Mid-season you might have Summit or Fry, and then you need a late season for bronze. The two most popular right now are probably Granny Val and late Fry. Differences between the two, I find Granny Val to be a little bit later than late Fry. Granny Val, very strong vine, but very productive and can still be at times overproductive. But usually it has the vigor it needs for the crop it sets. You can see the berries very firm, they're not ripe yet. In Tifton, usually Granny Val's coming off the vine in late August. Late fry is a little bit earlier than that. Late fry, the biggest problem I have with late fry is I don't think it picks as well. It's a very soft fruit. It'll oftentimes tear the skin when you pick it. For personal use, that's not a big deal. But if you're trying to sell it and put it in clamshells and you get it starts tearing and leaking, that can be a real problem. I like the flavor of late fry better than I like the flavor of Granny Val. Granny Val to me, sometimes it sets a little too much crop. It's not quite got the bricks I would like it to have, and it can be a little bit watery or sour. Late fry has a little more traditional muscadine flavor. But either one can be used for your late season bronze type. The only other one that's used a little bit is Pam.
Don't skip Pam now, come on.
Pam is a female variety, but it's probably been one of the more productive female varieties we've had. It makes a large berry. It's a good bigger vine. Flavor is what I would call okay, not exceptional usually. But it has been used commercially to some extent because it is big, it's fairly pretty, it's mid to late season for us, and it's a very strong vine. So it's one you might want to consider for something like Pick Your Own. If you are going to plant just a few vines at home, I always recommend people to plant the black types over the bronze types. Unless you just absolutely like the flavor better of the bronze, and I do think the black and bronze have a slightly different flavor from each other. But the black types get much less soft rots than do the bronze types. I grow some of the black ones at home. I don't spray them at all, and we do okay with them if the raccoons leave us alone. So if you just want a few vines and you don't want to spray and you don't care about the color, definitely choose black varieties for your home vineyard.
All that crazy hard fish in the belly keeps somebody won't be there.
Alright guys, so I've actually found the one that I liked 2 years ago when we were here before. It's the GA 61269. Thankfully, a fellow subscriber pointed it out while we were here. He was like, hey, isn't that the one you like? And I was like, I thought it was a little further up. And sure enough, I tasted it. Man, it is a mouthful, pretty much nothing but juice. It's absolutely incredible. So maybe they'll release this one day, who knows.
This is the one which is still being evaluated for release, 61269. We'll make a decision on that probably after this year. This is its 7th year in here. What we're hoping for out of this is a self-fertile large cultivar could maybe take the place of Fry in the mid-season bronze market. The size has been pretty good on it. For a bronze, we've had fairly good disease resistance. The vine vigor has held up over time. So that's what we're evaluating now. So we'll get, this year we'll get the last of our yield data and quality data, compare it with the standards, and then make a decision on release on this one. All right, let's move over to the black ones next.
Lots of these varieties are released, but some of them you can't find anywhere. So stay tuned and let us know what you think would be your favorite.
If you are going to plant just a few vines at home, I always recommend people to plant the black types over the bronze types. unless you just absolutely like the flavor better of the bronze. And I do think the black and bronze have a slightly different flavor from each other. But the black types get much less soft rots than do the bronze types. I grow some of the black ones at home. I don't spray them at all, and we do okay with them if the raccoons leave us alone. So if you just want a few vines and you don't want to spray and you don't care about the color, definitely choose black varieties for your home vineyard. This is Supreme. I recommend anybody that's got space for it to plant Supreme. I really like this variety. It's by far the #1 fresh market muscadine out there, and it's for good reason. It's got a nice big fruit. It's got a firm flesh. It holds well, both in storage and on the vine. So Supreme, you can let it get dark. These are ready to pick now. You can come back a week or two later and they'll still be on there, just getting sweeter. Not all varieties hold on the vine that well. Supreme's very good about it. The only people that have really had much trouble with Supreme is if you get in north areas and you get a heavy crop load, you can get freeze damage on Supreme. One of the most important things for freeze damage is not to overstress the vines. If you put a huge crop on there and you don't pick them especially, the vines will go into the winter being low in vigor, and you're at least twice as likely to get freeze damage on those vines than on appropriately cropped variety. How do you tell if your vine is overcropped? Basically you look, and if you're seeing a lot of berries on your vine, it's probably overcropped. This vine has a good crop on it, but you're not seeing them. You got a nice leaf canopy, the berries are hidden under there, you got enough leaves feeding the berries. Compare that to Ruby Chris next door, where this vine is struggling, and you're seeing the crop on here, and you're not seeing enough leaves. So here, what might be an appropriate crop, here you don't have enough foliage for the crop. What's happening in these varieties, and Ruby Crisp is one that does it, is we bred a large self-fertile. So remember I said the cluster size was bigger on the self-fertile, they set more crop, and the problem we get into is the first self-fertile vines had maybe 5-6 gram berry, and that was fine. The vine could handle that. We kept crossing them, we got up to 10 and 11 grams, that's about where Hall is. That's a lot of crop on it, but it could handle it. The Ruby Crisp, we bred it, and it went up to like 15 grams. Same amount of berries, that's again a third bigger, and it just gets to be too much crop on the vine. So the vine breaks bud in the spring. It'll set 2 or 3 clusters. It's self-fertile, so it's setting every berry on those clusters. And it gets to be too many berries per cluster, and the vine vigor goes down. So it's less sugar in the roots to support next year's growth. It'll come out, it'll break these same buds, and it'll make those same clusters, the same cluster size, but it doesn't have enough vigor to extend the shoot to give enough leaves to feed that cluster. And so you get the same amount of berries, shorter shoot, and again, there's less going into the winter time. And it'll just keep doing that cycle, and eventually it's just starving the vine, and you can have the vine collapse, and you can even have it die from overfruiting.
So reduce crop every year.
It's especially important to reduce the crop the first few years. Because once you get it up and down the wire, it's going to start to bloom, but the root system's really not all that well established.
Okay.
And so it's going to want to set in year 2 and especially year 3 and 4 a big crop when the vine's not quite ready for it.
So just keep it about half back.
So take some of this crop in, just come in. The ways I've done, you can either, just knock them off like that. And trust me, it'll look like a ton of fruit on there. You'll come back in 2 weeks, there's still enough fruit.
Okay.
What's the age of that vine? 3 years?
That vine is probably 4 or 5.
4 or 5.
Shane, put an asterisk on that
good
if the deer don't get the ones you left.
And we didn't get time to thin the crop, and it just started going down. Once you've got them to this stage where they're struggling, it takes me about 2 to 3 years taking all the crop off to get that vine to recover. And some of them never really seem to. So it's very important to get some of this crop load off so you have enough a fully established. I mean, a muscadine produces a lot of fruit, probably more than you're going to eat anyway. So take some of it off, get the quality up, and keep your vine. Another way to get the fruit off is take a plastic baseball bat and just kind of come along and just smack it. And it's sort of self-limiting because if you have a lot of canopy, you can't hit the fruit hardly enough to knock them off. But where there's not enough canopy, it's easy to hit them and knock them off. So that's another way to just get the berries off. And try to take them off once the berries size, but before they get much sugar in them, somewhere around Verizon when they start to change color. This one is Majesty, which was a Florida A&M release. And it's Supreme by Triumph. The variety you can buy, it's probably one of the very largest you can buy. It's very good flavor to me. Generally, this vine's got a decent crop on it. We've struggled to get full crops on Majesty. I think it'd be a good home vine, but I'd rather have Supreme commercially because you're going to get more yield off of Supreme.
Funny, as big as yours, Paul.
What?
I ate one at Paul's yesterday, one of his Majesty. And
yeah, they can be
oh
huge.
man, I couldn't close my mouth. It was so big. It was crazy. All right, guys. So you see Majesty. You heard Dr. Conner speak about it. These are absolute whoppers. Just absolutely insane as how big they are. Mouthful. Mmm. 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 So good. Mmm. I just can't explain. Majesty's so good. Now, I mentioned that these are not super productive, but when you've got plum size fruit, absolutely crazy.
This variety is Paulk. We released it to be something similar to Supreme, but have self-fertile flowers. It's not when you if you grade out 100 berries, it'll be very similar on average to Supreme. What happens is Supreme, if it gets fully pollinated and gets 3 or 4 seeds in it, it gets a bigger berry than Paulk. But if you only get 1 or no seeds, then you get a small berry. And so it's more of a mixture. Paulk, because it's self-fertile, always has 3 to 4 seeds. Very consistent berry size. It'll be around 15 grams. It's very nice in the clamshell. It's big enough to give that good look. The biggest difference between Paulk in terms of looks, Supreme doesn't have the little spots, the little lenticels on the fruit. Supreme doesn't have the ones that Paulk does. That's the only way to really tell them apart. If you get them side by side, they're pretty similar to each other. It picks better than Supreme. It usually has a drier stem scar. It tends to be a little more consistent on the vine when it ripens, so you can get 1 or 2 pickings and get them all picked. The one thing we've noticed, Paulk, after we got it out, it does not hang on the vine the way Supreme does. Supreme, you can just let it keep getting riper and riper and riper. Paulk, when it's ripe, needs to be picked. You're going to have about a week to a week and a half to get it picked. That's kind of good for the commercial growers because they can get in there and just go through and do a once-over picking a lot of times, then get all the crop off and put it into storage. But if you're pick your own or home, you probably would be better off Supreme because it'll last longer on the vine.
Where does Ison fall in that mix?
Ison is next door. Ison is not the size that a Supreme or a Paulk would be.
Okay.
So Ison's going to be more around 10 grams, 9 grams.
Does it do hanging on the vine?
To me, it does all right. Yeah, okay. Ison is a good all-purpose vine A lot of people like it. A lot of home people like it. It's mid to late season. It's usually pretty vigorous, usually pretty productive, and just a pretty good all-around berry. The two that seem to do real well, and it'd be big enough for clamshells probably, are Delicious and Ison are two all-around good, productive black varieties. They just don't have, they're not of the size class that the Supreme and Majesty Paulk is. They're more of a medium-sized berry. This one is Sweet Mix. We just got this vine a little bit ago. This is one that's put out by Ison's, kind of complements Supreme. I'm not sure, I haven't had it long enough to know what exactly the good and bad points are. Seem to have good flavor. This is our first year getting much crop out of it. So we'll be interested to follow this one along. It's also female like Supreme. Black Beauty, in terms of fruit quality, exceptional eating grape, kind of a firmish flesh, a nice skin, but as you can see, a lot of these female varieties, and Black Beauty's one, very seldom do you get what I would consider a good full crop off of it. You just are getting usually 50 to 30% of a crop. This year it looks more like 20%. It's just not got a lot of berries on it. If you want something very good quality, nice to eat for home use, it might be okay, but if you're trying to sell, it's just not going to have enough yield for you. This is Nesbitt. It used to be quite common to find this, and it was sold quite a bit for pick your own and home orchards. Medium-sized berry. It's fried by Coward. Decent flavor, mid to late season. Very strong vine. It would be a good home use one. It doesn't, I think it doesn't root real well, and so a lot of the nurseries don't like to carry it as much anymore. Alachua was released by Florida. It's rare to find it, but it's also a good home variety. This one is Southern Home. It's the only released cultivar which has some bunch grape ancestry, and you can tell that on this one from the leaves. When you get this maple leaf, cut leaf type, if you see that in a muscadine, you know it's got some bunch grape somewhere in its background. This is a cluster of it. It's fairly medium to small size, purple grape. Pretty good flavor. Tastes pretty much like a muscadine. There's not much bunch grape flavor in it. If you want a home vine, it's a little more ornamental than a standard muscadine. It's a nice choice. It would look pretty good on an arbor or a trellis, something like that, where you're seeing the leaves more. We've been using it somewhat in breeding, trying to bring that trait in. Commercial growers don't care what the leaf looks like, but homeowners, we'd like to have one that has a little bit bigger berry, nicer berry for use in that, because to me it is a much more attractive leaf shape. People often ask me what is the best tasting muscadine, and of course that's subjective, but one of the ones I really like is Southland. It makes a small berry, very soft, kind of slimy pulp, very thick skin. It's more like a wild traditional muscadine. This came out of Mississippi breeding program. That breeding program was a little bit different than most of the others. They used different germplasm. They're very distinct from the University of Georgia and North Carolina ones. Very dry scar. It's a self-fertile. It's a healthy vine. But if you just smell it, you'll get that really strong, that nice muscadine aroma. And I really like it for that reason. We've been using it a little bit to try and bring in that dry scar, but mostly to try and get that aroma into some bigger fruited varieties. So that one, and then Magoon is next door. That's another one that was released from that same program. It also has that very strong aroma. These are kind of late season varieties, but if you come in here when they're getting fully ripe on the vine, you can just smell it from coming across from the vine. So it's a really good one for that.
All right, guys, so we're gonna try a Magoon. Not very big, but again, just a unique variety. Very tough skin. Smaller berry. Pretty decent flavor. All right, here's Southland. Interesting.
This is Florida Onyx. It was a recent release by Florida A&M University. It's got Supreme in its background. It's a large purple variety. It's fairly new here, so we're still deciding how much the productivity and quality is. But flavor's pretty good. It's a little soft maybe, but not a bad variety. So if you see that out, that's what it is.
Do you know of any place selling it yet?
I do not. Typically their releases have been a little harder to find. I don't know if they're selling it around Tallahassee, like in Just Fruits and Exotics. You might try that. I've not seen it in like Isons or Bottoms yet. All right, let's walk through the selections and then we'll go back and look at some of the new ones on the table.
Don't hear many people talk about Polyanna, but we're going to try it today. Good. I wouldn't put it top of my list, but it's just small, kind of seedy. It does have a little bit more of a bite to it, but I wouldn't put it on my list. Have not heard of this one before. Regale. I think I'll pass on that. I've heard a lot of people talk about jumbo. Honestly, out of those last couple, I would pick jumbo. Still, it's not very, very large. Lake Charles, I remember this from last time. Lake Charles is very good. I wish I could tell you about all the varieties out here. This is absolutely incredible. Just the time that they've taken to be able to be out here and have this and allow us to have time to taste. Just the number of varieties is unreal as we kind of make our way through here. I do want to go back to my favorite variety and the one that surprisingly is still under trial. Couldn't believe it. These through here are pretty much all varieties that they're continually trialing to see if it's something that they do want to keep. They've got the crosses, the names.
These are our newer selections, which are in yield trials. So we have one trial in these 3 rows. It's just finishing. There's only one more selection we're still considering. And then you can see the first 2 rows or the next trial. It's in year 2. We'll start taking yield in year 3. So first 2 years, we've decided not to let them crop, and then we'll let them crop in year 3 and start taking yield at that point. So the way the breeding program works is we make a cross. We usually get at least 100. We like to have 100 to 200 seed from any particular cross. We plant them out in a seedling vineyard, and they're 2 feet between vines, so we're getting as many vines in there as we can. We get them up to the wire, let them fruit. I'll walk in this time of year and just go down the rows trying all the fruit. When I find one that has what we're looking for out of that cross, we flag it and number it. And so that's where you're getting these numbers. So like 66, 358, The first 6 is the cross was made in 2006. The second 6 was the 6th cross made that year. In this case, it was Pam by Terra. And then the 358, it was the 358th seedling in the row of that cross. And so that's where the numbers come from. So once we find what we're looking for, we flag it, number it, and the next summer we will take cuttings from it and root them out and put it out into what we call our selection vineyard. There will be many more selections in there than we will potentially trial as a cultivar. So it usually takes year 3 to year 4. We'll fruit it from the seed. We'll root it for a year and then put it in the selection vineyard, and it'll start fruiting anywhere from year 2 to 4. Once we see it a couple years in the selection vineyard at the wider spacing, if it still looks good and we think it has the traits we need for a new cultivar, then it goes into a yield trial. So once again, we'll root cuttings of it, put it out here in a replicated trial, and follow it along and get yield for 5 to 7 years. If it keeps looking good, every year we pick it, get the yield, we see how dry the stem scar was, we get bricks, we get size, we see how much rot there is and other traits. And we're testing here, we're testing at a commercial vineyard, and we also test, University of Florida is also helping us test new selections. And we think Texas is going to help us again in the future too. So we're getting several different places where we're trialing. And then if they look good, they'll get released and named at that point.
Which traits particularly are you looking for now, as opposed to 5 or 10 years ago? So.
It's pretty much the same. What we're looking for is we're looking for generally fresh fruit types. We're not currently trialing any wine types. We're looking for replacements so that growers can grow self-fertile varieties only and replace all the female varieties in their vineyard. So what we're looking for is larger berry size, so we'd like to get supreme size but self-fertile flowers.
Okay.
That's difficult to do. We think a genetic reason why the females tend to be linked with a bigger berry size. So we're trying to get that. We're trying to get, you want types early, mid, and late season. And then you need both colors. You need both purple and bronze in that. So you need a range of cultivars so they can plant. You'd like to have more than one variety for each of those categories.
Okay.
So that's what we're currently looking for. And the other thing we're looking for is we're looking for them to be firm so you can store them for at least the 2 to 4 weeks in cold storage and have them be acceptable coming out of that storage. So a lot of these in here have failed for various reasons. 10-1-329 has exceptional fruit quality, but you can see over time the vine vigor was not good enough, and it just kind of has collapsed in on itself, and so we've ruled it out for that reason. Paul is in here as a standard. This is the one which is still being evaluated for release, 61269. We'll make a decision on that probably after this year. This is its 7th year in here. What we're hoping for out of this is a self-fertile large cultivar could maybe take the replace of Fry in the mid-season bronze market. The size has been pretty good on it. For a bronze, we've had fairly good disease resistance. The vine vigor has held up over time. So that's what we're evaluating now. So we'll get, this year we'll get the last of our yield data and quality data, compare it with the standards, and then make a decision on release on this one. What we have here, and everybody's welcome to come up and try these, is I went through the breeding selections and pulled out things with different flesh texture. There's a lot of variability in muscadine for how firm the inside of the fruit is. The reason that's important is, again, the storage of them. If you're just eating them fresh off the vine, it maybe doesn't matter if they're soft. In fact, you might like a soft fruit. But when we're breeding for commercial vineyards, what matters is the quality of the fruit that reaches the consumer in the supermarket. And so things which maybe you don't like as well off the vine might be better in terms of what the actual consumer, who, let's face it, are mostly people buying groceries, what they're receiving in the store. One of the problems with muscadines is it's a naturally very soft fruit, and the grocer may not be familiar with it. They may be more familiar with vinifera grapes, which are very firm bred fruit. And so one of the problems you sometimes have is if you pick them fully ripe, some varieties will be soft when they're ripe. That's the way they should be. If the grocer isn't familiar with muscadines because he's from the north or somewhere where they don't have muscadines, you might see the dark color in the soft fruit and say that fruit is overripe, or maybe even rotten, and he will reject the fruit for sale. And so what we need to be able to do is get berries which will fit the market so that they will be firm and be considered ripe. And then one of the ways you can get around the softness is to pick them a little bit before they're ripe. But of course then you don't have the sugar you want. So we want a firm fruit that you can pick fully ripe, will have all the sugar it's supposed to have, and then we'll make it to the consumer and be a good eating experience for them. So come on up. This is what I would consider a traditional muscadine. It has a slip skin, so the pulp comes out of the skin, and the pulp is fairly soft. And it's what I would consider as, I usually put it in my notes as a Labrusca flesh. So it's like a Concord with that slip skin, soft pulp. This is what I would consider a softer pulp. So if you eat that, the pulp more readily breaks down in your mouth. This is probably what I would consider in the breeding program too soft to be used commercially. It probably with firmness will not hold well in storage. The other problem with a really soft pulp is if you pick them and the scar tears or splits, they tend to leak more juice into the pack. And if you get leaking berries in a clamshell like that, you'll have trouble with them. This is a plum texture. It's somewhere between the soft and the firm. To me, this is a good eating grape. The other thing you notice with this variety is to chew the skin specifically. You can see it's got a thinner skin. One of the things we're selecting for is skin which is more edible. But so you want a skin which breaks apart when you chew it, and then you don't want a lot of sour or bitter flavors in the skin. Some muscadines, if you chew the skins, are extremely sour. Others will have more of a bitter flavor to them. What we want is a more neutral flavor. $18,262 is another one of our more recent selections. A little bit firmer than the last one. Good flavor. I really like the skin on this one. It's easy to chew up, very unnoticeable. Ideally what you want is skin that stays attached to the flesh, a good flavored flesh, and then when you chew it, you're getting the good flavor out of the flesh and no flavor out of the skin. All the healthy parts of the muscadine mostly are in the skin. All the antioxidants, the polyphenols, all the good things are in that skin. So we want the consumer to eat that skin. I do. This one, the 16-1-166, has the same flesh but a thicker skin, and you can feel that. And you feel it; it's very firm. It's maybe not as nice to eat the skin, but that firmness, it'll probably store better and remain firm as the consumer gets the berry.
Are these females from Southland?
These are all female.
All females.
You didn't tell me.
But you also, when you chew that skin, it gets a little more sour than you did on the previous selection. And 1410, 132. Again, very neutral skin, nice plum flesh. This is probably, to me, eating wise, one of my favorites.
That one I got was super ripe. This one, 1410.
This is the thicker skin. This one, or this one are more neutral. That one's got a little bit of sour to the skin. No. This one's the best.
That one's good too.
Then you go on to the next, firmer flesh. Ruby Crisp is one of the firmer ones that's out there. This is our release. Ruby Crisp is interesting, very low muscadine flavor. Some people prefer not to have as much muscadine flavor. Other people really like it. I tend to like a strong muscadine flavor. But if you have somebody that wants a more neutral eating grape, more like a vinifera grape, Ruby Crisp is like that. 18269. You can feel that, and when you bite into it, it's got a crunch to it. When you look at the flesh, you can see that it's got a firmer flesh, and then you see that white layer underneath the skin. That's a crunchy layer. When a grape has that, you'll get that crunch to it when you bite into it. This one is Lane, also very firm flesh, early variety. Tends to have kind of a more grapey flavor to it. It's one of the few early season black muscadines. The vine is not as vigorous as we would like, but if you want early season and you want black, it's kind of one of your few choices out there. This one is AR 15349. This is from germplasm, shared with us from University of Arkansas. It's got some southern home in its background. You kind of tell that from the oblong berry shape.
You familiar with these Arkansas?
No, I'm not.
Got a red color to it, very pretty. Extremely vigorous vine, and easy to grow. Makes a nice loose cluster.
Delicious.
It's one we're trying in the next yield trial.
Is it self-fertile or female?
Female.
Leaves muscadine or more like
Muscadine leaves, unfortunately. But to me, it's got a good flavor.
Yes, it is. It's good. I'm surprised.
It seems to me that the black have a flavor, the bronze have a flavor, and oddly, the red color tend to have their own little somewhere in between flavor. And this last one is kind of one of my favorites.
Before you leave that past one, we all give it thumbs up.
The 15349. Yeah, I think the biggest thing will be we'll have to see, can we get the yield on a female vine that we need?
Does it make me so far?
It makes good if what I'm finding with the female varieties is the thicker the canopy, the lower the yield. So if you have the canopy spread out where the pollinators, I think, can get in there and pollinate well, you get acceptable yields. If you get a very dense growing vine in there, and so this one yielded great the first 3 years. There we're putting them on a 10-foot spacing if we need the room. It's overgrown and the yield has gone down. So we're going to see at the 20-foot spacing if the yield
would that be would what I do be a legitimate
I like that AR.
reason for doing it? I don't fertilize. I quit fertilizing any of my female vines until about my second or third fertilizing. I start on my real heavy produced self-fertile vines that produces a heavy crop this year. I start fertilizing in late February on those, and I fertilize them the year twice as much, the ones that produce the heavy crop.
That makes sense to me, yeah. I think that you don't want that heavy, especially early, that heavy canopy. You want those insects to be able to get in there and pollinate. And so if you delay, and if you don't have as much yield, you probably don't need as much total fertilizer. So this one is probably one of the biggest we have. It's not quite ripe. I had to pick it a little green. It's not yet fully in season. Very firm, pits clean. This thing has stored at least as well as Supreme. And Supreme is one of the, probably the best storing muscadine out there. Again, it's female. Let's see what the yield is. Unfortunately, we wanted to use it a lot in the breeding program because it is so large. It seems to be kind of a breeding dead end. You can get 300 or 400 seeds and get about 10 that'll germinate. I don't know what's going on there.
Is it less fruit drop than fried and all the other
Seems
ones?
to be, yeah. It doesn't seem to get quite as much. So the last thing we're going to show you is a little bit from the breeding program where we're going. You know, we said earlier that the self-fertile varieties, the biggest issue we have is we don't have the vine vigor to handle the crop load. And so we went in and we looked at the pedigree of all our muscadines to kind of figure out where that lack of vigor, why it's coming in. And what we found is that we're inbreeding our vines a lot. So we keep crossing things which are closely related to each other. Your inbreeding goes up, and usually this is you have male and female vines in the wild, so they're used to being crossbred to get that vigor. And so as we inbreed, we're losing that crossbreeding, and that's leading us to get lower and lower vigor. And then we looked at the pedigrees, and we found that most muscadines came from about less than 10 wild selections. And so we've used very little of the natural variability of the vines in our breeding program. So we said, okay, what happened if we looked at some of the more wild vines, which have incredible vigor in them, but not very good fruit crop? And so one of the things we looked at in muscadine is Vitis rotundifolia, and it's generally in the northern range of the muscadine. Has, like Scuppernong, about that size fruit. But there's another closely related species, Vitis Musconiana, that's native to South Florida, mid-Florida, and a little bit up along the southern coast. Musconiana produces a much smaller fruit. This is a wild Musconiana. So a wild muscadine might be more like that size. So a much smaller fruit, usually a thinner skin. Very vigorous, early to break bud in the spring because it's used to South Florida. So we wanted to bring that into the breeding program to get our vigor up. So we crossed this to this cultivated muscadine, very large berry size. Then we got up to this side. Extremely vigorous vine, but again, not the size we need. You can try them. They're slip skin. They're very soft on the inside. Flavor very strong, but kind of sour. So we needed another generation to get the quality back up. So we crossed the Ruby Crisp because these had a very soft flesh. Ruby Crisp has a very firm flesh, nice edible skin, which we also wanted in there. And then we got these three selections are from there. So you can see our size going up in the next generation. This size would be big enough for a wine grape, almost the size for a commercial fresh fruit, but probably not quite. And so these fruited for the first time this year. We will again cross to one of those large selections, and hopefully at that point we will have the size and quality to potentially select some to trial for yield trials. But try these especially. They have, to me, a very interesting flavor. Very good skin on them, coming from the Ruby Crisp. A little bit different flavor. I think a very good kind of sprightly flavor to them.
Got a nice thin skin on it too.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some good traits to that one. The purple one, skin's not quite as good, but it also has kind of a unique flavor to it. Very sweet to me. This one's female, this one's self-fertile. So I'd like to keep that flavor. When you look at the vines on them, the vines are much more vigorous than our standard muscadine vine. When you plant them, they easily take off and get down the wire. These were fruiting in the second year, and so very quick to come in, the fruit being.
Have y'all ever crossed Sweet Jenny with highly productive varieties?
We did about one cross of Sweet Jenny, and it gave some good. There's some nice traits to Sweet Jenny, but the vigor wasn't what we wanted in that cross.
Well, when I had Sweet Jenny, it was the most vigorous vine I had, but it only produced about half a gallon a year, so I pulled it. So the way.
Yeah, I thought the flavor was really interesting on both of those.
Yeah, I like them a lot. It's interesting. So I think something different is coming in from that other species. I'm curious as to whether this would make a better juice. I'm curious how it would do like as a wine. Too. I think that thin skin would make it easy to juice it commercially. So that's one of the things we're doing. The other thing we're doing, this is Vitis popenoii. It is the third species of muscadine. So in vinifera, or in the grape genus, you have all the bunch grapes and then you have the muscadines. The bunch grapes have 38 chromosomes in their diploid number. The muscadine have 40 chromosomes. So you cross them, you get 39 chromosomes, and that's generally sterile. And so in breeding wise, you kind of have the bunch grape world doing their thing breeding, and you have the muscadine world doing their thing breeding, and not much communication between the two. So in the muscadine we have three species. You have the Munsoniana we talked about, the rotundifolia, that's our standard muscadine we're all using. This is the third one, popenoii. I've only ever seen one accession of it. It is native to southern Mexico and Central America. It's a very vigorous vine. You can see it's got a little bit different leaf shape to it. Much longer, less round leaf shape. This thing continually grows. So it grows through October, November, into early December, just like it's summertime, and then it gets shut down by frost. Surprisingly, we've had very little cold damage on it. Doesn't seem to mind getting shut down. And then as soon as it warms up in the spring, this will be out before the muscadines, and it'll start growing again. Traits we were interested in the early bud break, because muscadines in South Georgia, they wait, which is good because they don't get frost. Mm-hmm. But if we got a little bit earlier bud break, could we get earlier flowering and then earlier harvest? Because that's one of the traits we're interested in investigating.
Does it still only do one crop?
This thing actually, if you see it, it's got flowers.
Right.
So it's more continually fruiting. As long as it's got vigor and it's sending out, most grapes, if they break buds and are vigorous, they will flower again. So you'll see, oftentimes a muscadine, if they're growing vigorously, you'll get a second June bud break and flowering, and you'll get fruit that then you can harvest in September. And so yeah, these are a little more like that. This is the fruit that they produce. You see it's very late, that's the problem. So we got to get the early bud break, but these take a lot longer to ripen. So we got to get the ripening period of muscadine and the early bud break of the popenoii to get an early harvest berry. In terms of the berries, extremely thick skin, probably 2 to 3 times thicker than most muscadine. Not a good flavor in the skin as well, and not much sugar in it. This was the first generation crossing to basically a similar muscadine to Ruby Crisp, but not quite that one. And this is what we got.
That got me. Excuse me.
It's not as good as those. The skin is thicker.
You look like you had a sour.
And it's not particularly sour. It's just not. It's a little off. You didn't
look like you enjoyed it.
Yeah. But we did get the size up quicker, so we got that going for us. You can see the leaves here. You can see the leaves aren't quite the same as the muscadine. Not quite as different as this. The thing I liked about this was we propagated the cuttings, easily rooted, started growing right away. We planted them. It went up. We planted in late April. Went up to the wire, down the wire, made side shoots, and flowered the first year.
Wow.
So we're getting vigor in there.
Yeah.
Another generation or two, hopefully we'll get the quality of the fruit and be able to
You
get
got
that
sour
bigger.
apple candy?
Oh, really?
That's sour.
Give one a shot.
Sour with sweet.
I tried one. It was it's weird. I'm gonna go get it with my wife.
Yeah, there's still a little bit of nasty in there. But for one generation, that's kind of what
because
you
it's tough.
we figure when you go to the wild, it takes 3 generations maybe to get wine juice and 4 to 5 to get fresh market.
Me too. I think I'm the biggest.
So the trick is to get those generations, but keep the vigor or other traits you're trying to get.
Me too. Yeah. They only last so long. Every day. I'm a truck driver.
Sarah, you want to
Keep them in my cooler. Keep them
talk
in my
about
cooler
your
and ate them all day. All day, every day.
All right, so if you haven't seen this or grabbed one, you're welcome to grab one of these. But this is just sort of a visual reminder of some of the different pests and diseases that you may encounter, as well as the different cultural practices, and just when in the season you're trying to complete all of those practices, and when in the season those pests and diseases might be of concern. So there's a couple of diseases and pests which are not very common but can affect muscadines. Like, you don't really see leaf rust happening in muscadines, or it's not a concern. It's usually handled by other fungicides if you're spraying fungicides, but it potentially can see it. So if you're seeing something, you can always let us know. So be careful. And then we have our different phenological stages as we go through. We certainly will have more drawn out stages in muscadines, and you'll see in some bunch grapes, but just kind of looking at the different stages and some of the different tasks that you want to do. So it only has little snippets of information on each of these different things that you can then reach out to the Southeast IPM guide for muscadines to get a little more information on all of these different tasks that you have to win and what some of the stuff that you can do about it. But this is just sort of a visual reminder to kind of help keep it in mind. So you can also just kind of reference that as you go through. This material for this is meant to be kept outside, so you can post this outside if you need to. That it's large enough that hopefully you should be able to see it. But if you would like a poster, you can take a poster. Oh, great! Just no more than one per group.
Yeah.
But you're welcome to have one. If you have any questions, please let us know. It's also available as a online. You can also find it online if you don't want to take a poster. You want to see that information.
And if you didn't hear before when I introduced her, Sarah is our new extension viticulturist for the University of Georgia. Taking over for Kane. And so you're going to be seeing her more. She'll be at the Savannah meeting and probably in future field days and that kind of thing. You'll see Sarah.
Be bothered by me or in the future too.
Do y'all still have the test, the field in Watkinsville?
Yes, she's finishing that up. He was asking about the test on Watkinsville.
Oh, yes. So we have the spacing trial out there that we'll get our second year of data off of that. We're not harvesting yet up there, but we're going to get in there in the next couple of weeks. And so we'll have that second year of data. She was talking a little bit about that during the Savannah conference. And then some other new stuff will get planted in next year.
So that's all for the official program. Feel free to hang out, look at the thing, eat any of this fruit that's just going to get thrown away. So.
We appreciate y'all a lot.
All right, guys, so we're here at the Tifton meetup for muscadine growers, and I just want to continually say thank you for Dr. Connor for putting this together, and for those other folks who kind of continue to point it out. And I think that we've got, I don't know the official term, John Mark didn't win a trophy. So John Mark actually drove the absolute furthest out of anyone. So I'm gonna let him just share a little bit about himself, where he's from, and also what got him into muscadines, and we got a couple other questions for him. So,
well, I'm John Mark Lockling. I'm from South Arkansas. I had my first muscadine when I was about 11 or 12 years old, and my parents had a family friend's house we went over to. It was this time of the year, and she actually had some ripe muscadines on a arbor in her backyard. And then so Dad said, hey, she's got some, you want to try some? She's letting us have some. And I said, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to try them, because I'll try anything fruit-wise at least once. So I tried one, And I thought, what are those? I love those. It was a burst of juice, good flavor. I mean, the skin was thick and it was seedy, but it was good. And I remembered that. A few years later, I started working for a greenhouse and garden center. In the wintertime, they would bring in their fruit trees for us to restock and to sell in the springtime. And what they brought in were some muscadines. And I thought,
hey, I remember those.
I remember those. And so what I did was got to talking with my parents, because I still lived with them at the time. And I decided just to build a real small, simple arbor. And I remember the first 2 varieties I bought. It was about the only ones offered in my area, but Carlos and Coward. Put them in the backyard. They grew up, and about a year or 2 later, I started eating on them. And that was nothing like a trellis system like this. It was just real basic.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't know that it even still is together anymore.
Well, I think one thing to remember with all that too is like people get so hung up on you got to have this trellis, you got to put in all this infrastructure. Yes, in the long run, that's really probably what you should do. But a lot of people, maybe they don't have the ability.
Well, I didn't have the funds. I was in high school.
That too. So you can do something on something pretty similar, or simple. Even a cattle panel. I've seen folks grow them on a cattle panel, so it definitally works. So you started from a pretty young age.
Yeah.
Right.
I started there, and I discovered what I just had a bias in planting things.
You worked at the garden center.
Yes, I worked at a garden center in my parents' backyard, and I actually put in 4 vines of a proper trellis system.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly how, but I caught wind of Ison's nursery. And from there, I kind of saw how you run your trellises, or the preferred way, I should say.
Right.
Run your trellises and all the different varieties they sold, watch their videos, and I thought, okay.
Something you want to dive into.
Something I want to dive into. So then I planted Ison, late fry, Terra, and I planted a fry seedless, but it died, so I just rooted another late fry. Don't tell Isons I did that. Rooted another late fry.
It's personal use.
So 2 late fries and the other 2, and they're still up and producing to this day.
And now you're at your house, and you've really expanded recently.
20 vines.
20 vines. So let's kind of talk through that. What's your favorite, at least in varieties that you have, or that maybe you had in the past? So what's your favorite variety? As of right now, probably my favorite tasting variety is, I'm gonna have to agree with Greg Ison, Sugargate. Sugargate. And black varieties, I would say Ison is my favorite actual variety. I think Sugargate has a better flavor, but Ison is a better plant, I think, because you can just do everything with it. Sure. It's such a good variety in my opinion. But sure. No, we're good. Any thoughts that you might expand any more? Are you kind of at your limit? Are we ever at our limit? I put 4 in, and I thought, well, there's some varieties I don't have that are being talked good about. Let's go with 8. And then the next year, I kid you not, next year I was like, actually no, midsummer, since Bottoms at the time shipped potted plants, midsummer I added 3 more. So then there was 11, and then I added 5 more the following winter to make it 16. And then I told my wife, okay, 16, that's enough. I don't plan on adding any more. I added more. Added 4 more. Well, we'll continue to pray for you as you try to figure out how, that's right. Well, pray for you that you can kind of talk with your wife, because I think most all of us have that same discussion. You're totally fine from that perspective. So from here, you made a long drive. How many hours was it? 10. 10 hours. 10 even. Oh wow. So are you going anywhere else while you're here in the wonderful, beautiful state of Georgia? Yeah, I plan on having having lunch with a few friends after this, and after that, there's actually going to be there's a vineyard that's about 45 minutes away from here. One of the gentlemen here, I believe his name is Paul. He owns, and I'm actually going to go out to his place and pick some muscadines. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoy your trip for sure. You might at least drive by Paulk. Paulk Vineyards. Paulk Vineyards is, I think, the largest in the U.S. And I don't think it's too far from Paul's house. So you might try and work that into the trip if it's not too far out of the way. If you're like me, it's like, oh, it's only 15, 20 minutes anyway. Yeah. So that's no big deal. Yeah. Well, I certainly appreciate you taking the time. I hope you have a safe trip back. And I will say that a lot of the folks that I have met either at this event or like John Mark, he and I actually met in the Muscadine growers group, and I'll link that down below in this video. Just been able to make some really, really good friendships, relationships, and that's how honestly I found out about the Tifton meetup 2 years ago. and how a lot of people found out this time we had a much bigger turnout. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Hope you all have a wonderful and blessed day. Matt Dean here from Dean Family Acres here at the UGA Tifton Tour, where we're getting to see, I don't even know how many varieties they have here. Did you count on the sheet? You did not. Well, I'm going to let Mike kind of introduce himself. He comes from a little bit different perspective than a lot of us. He's much further south. And we will go from there, and hopefully the wind doesn't aggravate us. So, all right, go ahead, Mike.
Well, like Dean said, my name is Mike. So I'm from Daytona Beach. So my soil is very sandy. So I don't get the same yields. I get different flavors. Some vines don't even grow by me. But right now, if you add Bottom's Nursery and Ison's Nursery, I have just about that many varieties plus 5. That's the easiest way for me to describe it. I don't have a number.
You don't have a number?
I don't.
Is it because
I'll say
you
45.
can't count that many? You couldn't take your boots off today?
We'll say 45.
45.
We'll say 45.
Different varieties.
Different varieties.
Do you have any multiples?
Yes, I do.
You do have a few multiples?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, there's certain ones I like, because by me, Delicious does very well.
Okay.
Southern Home does excellent by me. And Alachua, and certain ones like that. So I have trouble with the good ones like Supreme. I always get jealous when I see Facebook pictures of people Supreme. I'm like, I wish I could have that. I love the flavor. I love the crunch of it, but I don't get that many berries.
Right, right. And you think it's mainly because of your soil type, or do you think it's that plus the heat and the weather?
I would say both, but definitely my soil. It has to have something. It's like almost like growing at the beach. It's sugar sand. So
when everybody else talks about, oh, well, you need to give your vine 10 plus gallons per week, or what, it depends on who you look at. You're probably supposed to do much more than that.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know.
How much do you traditionally water down there?
Oh, okay. So watering, me, it goes right through the soil.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to do minimum of 1 gallon a day, minimum, if not 2 gallons a day, if you want to have something that's good on your vine, get your money.
So to do that, do you kind of, since it runs straight through, do you kind of use a smaller emitter so that it's kind of a super slow drip? Or?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would stick with the half gallons, and then just keep on adding half gallons.
Right.
That's it. There's no 1 gallon.
Yeah, because you do a 1 gallon, it's just going straight through.
There's no need. Yep.
Okay. Well, great. Yep. Well, you mentioned 45 varieties. You mentioned several varieties. I think several of those are from University of Florida or Florida A&M, maybe?
Yeah, I have
a few of those.
Majesty, I have that one.
Do you feel like some of those varieties do better for you, or it just depends?
I do. It seems like it to me. It does.
Okay.
Even like Eudora. Eudora, I can grow it into pure sand. Nothing holds it back. And so to me, I grow a lot of varieties that other people don't. And yes, I love the flavor, but it's more because I can grow it. So there's certain ones I wish I could grow, like Black Beauty.
Right.
I wish I could grow that one. If I do it, I still have a vine, but I might only get
produce a lot.
I might get 20 berries if I'm lucky in a year.
I know another vineyard that I visited had Majesty and didn't produce a lot there, but you mentioned that it does well for you.
It does. Majesty does okay.
Does it produce?
Majesty's not that great of a producer.
Okay, but big berries.
They're big. Yep.
They're big.
Yep.
Yeah. One I ate yesterday, literally, I couldn't close my mouth.
Yeah, right.
I was like,
right, and then you're like, what do I do? Do I crunch it and have it swirl over? What do I do?
That's right.
And then I just turn around and take a bite.
Yeah, there you go. So, what's your favorite variety?
My favorite one would be, let's go with Southern Home.
Southern Home. Like the extra punch.
I do, but they have to be dead ripe.
Yeah.
That's the only thing,
Yeah, well, good. Anything else that you might give tips to folks that are growing in more sandy conditions and or kind of in mid Florida, I guess? Is that what you kind of consider Daytona? Is that mid Florida?
Yeah, I'd say mid Florida.
Yeah. The watering, making sure you're not, you're not using big drip emitters. You're just running an hour and that's it. Like you really need to extend it out so it's just super slow.
Right.
Any difference in fertilizing from what Ison's traditionally recommends?
Yeah, so, well, by me, my soil is very acidic, so I'm always doing lime, but I'll start the lime 3 months before the season, make sure it breaks down before bud break.
Yeah. Is that something that you're kind of consistently having to do, you see?
Yes, absolutely. And then if I do like a black cow, I will put it just on top of the soil, and over the year's time, with rainwater and irrigation, it'll just blend itself down and do that every year.
Does that help to, did you amend?
It kind of conditions the soil a little bit and just makes the soil itself healthier.
Sure. Well, that's always helpful too in regards to just sand, because I know
it's tough.
I don't have that at all. Mine is basically red clay.
and
it's complete opposite.
Anything you add to the sand within a year, it becomes sand. It's really weird.
It is.
You'll look down and
that.
be like, well, where's the black owl?
It
just disappears. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Well, I certainly appreciate your time and kind of making some of those recommendations and comments from something that's completely different than what we grow or they even grow here in Tifton.
Yeah.
Thanks,
no
Mike.
problem. Yeah.
Man. All right, guys. So thanks so much again for joining us as we were able to come to Tifton, Georgia, for a muscadine growers meetup. And this is Sarah Lowter, and Sarah is fairly new.
Yeah, I started about almost a year and a half ago.
Okay, all right. And what's your title, and exactly how do you kind of fit into all of this craziness that we dive into, and sometimes that's our lives?
Absolutely. So I am the extension viticulturist at the University of Georgia. I'm based in Athens, but I help people grow grapes across the state of Georgia. So essentially my role is to help people grow grapes better versus the breeding program, which is just trying to find the grapes that will grow best.
There you go. So you kind of are able to give maybe some tips if someone's having an issue, or maybe how to improve what they have already selected.
Yeah, so once you have it in the ground, or even actually first, if you can plan properly before you put it in the ground, that's the first step. But a lot of times the problems you see are after everything's been put in the ground.
We're too impatient.
Yeah,
we just want to do it.
You want it to be planted yesterday is the perfect time for it to be.
That's right.
In the ground. But if you can plant it beforehand, that helps promote the longevity of the vines in general. And then if you have another issue as it comes forward, and it depends on what issue it is, keeping an eye on the grapes, so you try to address it as soon as possible. When the issue, you can remedy something much easier if it's not already killed your vine. But one of the things that we have recently come up with is this UGA Muscadine poster. We've got this hard copy here present, but you can also find this online. If you just Google the UGA Muscadine Grape Management poster. It's housed at the UGA program, but it came out of the Southern Region Small Fruit Consortium funding. And this was I helped lead this, but it's a process that a lot of scientists across the Southeast helped create just to look at some of the different cultural practices and when you want to do those cultural practices throughout the season, as well as different diseases and pests that you may have to deal with and when you might have to deal with them based on how the plant is growing within the season. So this is kind of supposed to be a little cheat sheet to help kind of just cue you in on what all is happening and when it's happening. And then it also references the Southeast Regional IPM, Integrated Management Guide, that will help control some of this information. So it will go into more detail in the guide, but that's a booklet. This is kind of the cheat sheet to help you cue into that visually.
Well, these were extremely nice, and I think helpful for a lot of us to be able to just kind of have a quick glance.
Yeah.
And it's something that is available online. I'll link it down below. And also, I'm sure it'll show up multiple other videos in the future, just as kind of a cheat sheet. Tips for anyone in regards to, before you get started, soil test?
Soil test, knowing what it is you're planting. A lot of times it depends on where you're at in the country. Georgia tends to have very acidic soils. So making sure it's not too acidic for those plants to be very happy. That's the most consistent difference. But if you go somewhere a lot further east, a lot of the muscadines that are planted over in Texas have to do with much too basic of soils. So that also can create even bigger issues sometimes for that. So making sure that your soils are prepped. You cannot do that once you have a trellis and a vine in the ground. So that's something that you have to do beforehand. Keeping an eye on some of the other conditions so you don't have vines planted in a wet spot. Vines do not like wet feet, so that can be a big issue that you, again, cannot really address very well after the vines go into the ground.
I was having that conversation actually yesterday. I went and visited Mr. Paul's vineyard, and he had to do just what you said. He had to amend because he had some that the feet were too wet, and looking at it, it didn't look like it. But then, just the way things settled, so he had to take them out and
Absolutely. So you can, if you can keep an eye on the land that you're hoping to plant something for hopefully a little bit longer, kind of get an idea for that, it can always help. And making sure you can get better fruit if you've got more sunlight on those vines as well.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
planting them in the shade is not necessarily the.
I have learned that the hard way, just trying to be, I think I could stick one more right here, and it's like, yeah, that doesn't work. It might grow, but it really doesn't produce.
Not the happiest of vines.
That's right. That's right. I know you guys have a newsletter.
Yes.
How do they sign up for that? What's the easiest way to be able to get on that list?
So the easiest, if you Google UGA viticulture, you should be taken directly to the UGA viticulture website. That site is still under construction, although we're trying to update that with more just readily available information. But at the bottom of that page, there will be a link where you can put in your name and your email. And receive those emails whenever they're sent out. They come in generally about 6 p.m. is when the emails go out per day. If there's one that day, there's not always one every day. But we try to keep that updated with some of the most relevant information.
Sure.
Helpful to grape growers.
Yeah. And you also kind of promote or when y'all are having an on-site somewhere, if it's at a vineyard. I know I saw the notification for this as well that was on there. So
absolutely, I try to keep the events posted on there as well.
That's right. That's right. A lot of it is grape heavy.
So this is only going to be great information.
That's right. Right. But there is some things that can kind of cross over that can be super beneficial to making sure with kind of your traditional grape that we think of versus muscadine, that kind of thing as well. Because a lot of people get caught up in that name.
For sure.
Right. So,
for sure. Muscadine's a grape too.
Yeah, there you go. So just making sure and clarifying that for everyone as well, and that there is a lot of crossover. It is essentially the same. I don't have the technical terms. Sarah and Dr. Connor can certainly give us those very specific technical terms that are usually above my head. Anything else?
A lot of times if we're posting a difference, we'll say either bunch grape or muscadine grape.
There you go.
If you want a quick cue in for that.
Sure. Anything else you would like to share with them in regards to just with folks to learn or know, or just knowledge base, or what you or other folks in UGA can help?
Yeah, so if you're having issues or if you're having something you're concerned about, it's always great to reach out to your county agent. And if there's something that they don't know, they can reach out to the specialist that can reach out to. But if you're having any issues, please reach out to your county extension support system. And we are happy to help you as fast as we can possibly do.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you all so much for kind of coordinating, you being here to be able to bring your side as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you as well, right?
Yes, I was hired as a pecan breeder in 1998. And that's all I did until 2004, at which point our muscadine breeder, Mel Hall, retired.
Okay.
University was not going to replace somebody just to breed muscadine. And so I said I would take over the program because I was kind of looking for another crop to do that's a little shorter term than pecans.
Right.
Muscadines fit in real well with me because the pecan trees are pollinating in April, beginning of May. Then the muscadines start mid-May to early June. The muscadines ripen in August, early September, and then the pecans ripen mid-September to October. So both of those crops fit together well, so one crop's not taking away from the time I do the other crop.
Sure. Do you enjoy one over the other?
I like both crops, but I really enjoy the muscadine. The muscadine, there's so many different, more colors and flavors and variability there.
Sure.
It's really fun to work with them.
Right, right. And the results, you get to see those much sooner.
We do. Muscadine seedling some will fruit even in the second year, most by the third or fourth year. Pecan trees, you plant a seed, it's going to be at least 6 to 10 years before you'll see them.
Wow. So in regards to the number of varieties here, about how many do y'all have?
We have about 40 to 50 named varieties here, and then a bunch more selections that were never named.
Sure, sure. And then, do you have any at your home? I know you were mentioning earlier you're out here tasting and everything for hours.
I do. I have a few at home. Don't oftentimes harvest them because the raccoons and the deer get them before I do.
To that for sure.
But I grow one. It's it's actually a selection. It's a red one. I grow that one because my wife really likes the flavor of that. We have that 15349 that you guys liked. That one is also at the house to see how it does. I used to grow a Nesbitt there because it was a good all-purpose variety that was very strong vine, very long harvest season. So we liked that one good.
Okay.
And I also have a Supreme in there for the very big berry season.
Right. So the 4 vines. Yeah. When you have so many here, it just makes it where you don't have to.
It does, yeah. So there's not a big need to have them at home.
Right, and that's really cool that you're able to kind of have those as trials at home too, to be able to kind of do that
we do
research.
because we don't spray at home or anything like that. They don't. We water them if it gets super dry, but it's not real regular. So you see which ones have the best ability to handle that neglect.
Which one would be your favorite out of? I would say anything. Is there a particular variety that's your favorite?
You know, I find myself eating a lot of Southland, even though it's an old variety with a thick skin and a very soft pulp, but it has that traditional muscadine aroma, and I just will tend to go pick some of that.
Brings back the memories. Yeah. Well, good. Well, I know that today I was super excited because when we came 2 years ago, it was the first time that I'd ever met you or had really kind of started seriously kind of diving into muscadines more. And my favorite one is the one that's still being trialed.
Yes, 61269 is one that has done well. It's been a good all-purpose vine. It's self-fertile. It's got a good berry size. It seems to handle the disease for a bronze type better than most.
Right.
And so oftentimes what makes a successful cultivar is a vine that is good at several things versus being exceptional at one thing and then struggling at something.
Right. And in regards to time frame on kind of making some of those decisions with that, like what kind of time frame?
So we're getting the yield data now for our last year. That yield trial, this will be the last year for it.
Okay.
So I'll get the data from here. I'll get the data from some of our cooperators. We'll look at that this fall and then probably this winter. The university releases things tends to be in the winter and summer. We have to go through a committee. So it'll be in that time frame. But then we got to get to, if we do release it, we got to get stock plants and cuttings to the nurseries.
Right. So you're talking a couple years before it gets
probably
to be?
before it's widely available.
Okay. Well, it's always good to know. I think last year there were some Arkansas varieties that was kind of talked about or they were coming out, and I think all of us are still like, where are these varieties? No one sees them, and of course we all get super eager about when's it coming.
Yeah, so that's just a matter of getting enough stock plants that they can offer and a wide enough scale to advertise.
Right. Well, I certainly thank you, number one, for taking the time to do this. I know that this isn't exactly something that y'all consistently do, and I don't know if it's Mark Bird or who keeps asking.
So we try to do it at least every other year. It's sometimes we don't feel like we have enough to talk about to do it every year. But we would like to, with Sarah coming on board as our viticulturist, I think we'll be a little more regular.
Well, good. And I know that she's been doing a good many different programs and things throughout. I'm on the email blast that gets sent out. And not all of that's necessarily muscadine, but some of it is. So it does end up being useful information. I certainly appreciate you taking the time to be able to highlight something that a lot of us are passionate about. And, just basically people kind of showing people throughout the world essentially what a great fruit this is.
Yeah, muscadine is, we're in a tough area to grow fruit. It's hot, it's humid, we have a lot of disease, and many fruit crops struggle. But because muscadine evolved here, it's the perfect fruit for us to grow. You can give it what I consider minimal care, and if you plant the right variety, you'll get a lot of fruit. It along with rabbit-eye blueberry, one of the few things that are used to our climate. So I think if you're looking for a fruit crop to grow here, that should be one of your top choices.
Thank you again. Greatly appreciate it. Yes, sir. All right, guys, so thanks again for joining us on another video where we're highlighting things from here in Tifton, Georgia. It is starting to get hot. Thankfully, we started at 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't even know what time it is. Let me cheat here. It is 10:50, and compared to 2 years ago, this was a blessing because I'm pretty certain I was about to have a heat stroke last time. And
twice I've heard that.
Oh my gosh! But we are joined by one of Georgia's finest muscadine growers and the most down-to-earth person you have ever met in your entire life. If you don't watch this guy's videos on muscadines, still have pigs? Don't have pigs?
No pigs.
No pigs.
I got rid of the pigs.
Taking a break.
Yes, big break.
He has gone through a lot of hurdles recently.
Yes.
They had a home fire, so to continue to remember them, I think you're about to start back building.
Monday we start. We just got the wood in yesterday. As a matter of fact, the video's about to drop here in a few minutes.
It will probably be way after your video. So.
But anyway, the video's out. But we got our wood in, and the house will be starting to get built Monday.
Awesome.
So they're going to start framing Monday. Said 10 days it should be framed out, and promising to have us in by Thanksgiving.
Wow.
So I'm holding the contractor to it. So he's got it all out on a calendar showing everything that's happening. It's supposed to go really, really fast.
Well, I know that y'all are looking forward to that. Ooh. And I've had a few other friends that have had home fires or grew up after being a child as a home fire, and
it stinks.
The biggest thing is knowing everybody's okay.
Yes.
That's the absolute #1 thing, and then just dealing with it.
Yeah.
And not wanting to ever have to deal with it again.
Oh.
So. Enough about the depressing stuff. Let's talk about the good stuff.
Yeah, let's
talk a little bit about muscadines.
What a day.
Wow.
I had a blast.
Yeah?
It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Well, I missed you last time we were here. I was like, man, can you come? And I think you communication or something.
4 o'clock this morning to leave out to get here. So it was a good long drive in the country. I thought I was going to run out of gas in the middle of the woods. I said, the first gas station, of course, everybody's closed.
Oh, yeah.
So I finally found some gas and made it up here. And then I wasn't sure if I was at the right place, but this place is really cool. I had an absolute ball trying out all the new varieties that are hopefully coming out soon. But they were some good grapes. I really had a blast. If you guys haven't had the opportunity to come up here, hopefully Matt will put it on schedule, or I can remember to put it on my schedule. For you guys, this is the place to be if you're a muscadine grower.
It definitely is, and I'm not the point person. I know the point person. I've kind of followed up with them. Last year we tried to get it going. I think they're wanting to do it maybe every other year. But maybe if you guys can encourage this guy or some other big growers, I think we should do something every year. So maybe we can kind of meet up at someone else's vineyard and that kind of thing, and kind of make things work. But we'll see.
I love stuff like that.
Yeah,
I love stuff. If you just get with me,
sure.
I love stuff. We had a big pig roast a couple of years back. 3 Creek Farms, a buddy of mine, James, put on a YouTube meetup.
He owns Uncle Jesse.
He did, but he owned him before he passed away. Yeah, he was a 800-900 pound boar. But we had a huge pig roast YouTube meetup. It was so fun. Everybody was so sweet and so nice, and the meat was fantastic. All the fixings were great. It was just a heck of a good time. And out there on my farm, you know, there's nothing. We could play music as loud as we want. We're way out in the middle of nowhere, so it was a super good time. I would love to do that.
Yeah. I mean,
especially during picking season.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Maybe we can kind of coordinate that in amongst.
I run a U-pick.
That's right.
So that'd be great.
Yeah, we could time that out just right. We might have.
I need the help.
So, in regards to the event today, if you can think of a variety, they have pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And then the up and coming things, you know what blew me away?
What's that?
John Mark, he's walking by picking things. I'm trying not to eat too many this year because I still got to go do my pick and talk about each variety. And last time about put me in I don't know where it put me, but it was bad because I ate too many. But he's walking by, he's like, I'm pretty certain this was your favorite from last time. I'm like, I thought it was further down. I take one, I'm like, nope, that's it. You know which one they say they're still trialing?
What's that?
That one.
Yeah, which one was it?
It's that one. Hang on. I got a cheat sheet.
Number and all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
I wrote all the ones I like.
GA 6129.
Okay, that's the one you're looking for. The GA
61269. And that's the
circled one too.
That's the one that they say that they're trialing that might be next.
Oh, is that correct? Oh, okay,
it's
cool.
A big, huge bronze.
Wow.
And when you bite it, it's like you just had juice. Wow. I mean, it's like just almost solid juice.
Yeah. I think I tried every one out here.
Well,
I didn't let none get by me. When they talked about it, I tried it. I tried them all. Yeah. Yes, they were all good.
Tons of different varieties, and then they've got the different clamshells that we were able to taste, that kind of thing. Just absolutely wonderful. I want, because some of y'all, this might be the first time you've ever met this guy. And I would encourage you, Kinfolk Farms of Georgia.
Or just Kinfolk Farm now.
Kinfolk Farm.
Just Kinfolk Farm.
Oh, y'all are official.
Yeah, we did away with the Georgia way back.
Okay.
It's just too long.
Yeah, no.
I told my wife, I said, that's just too long.
Yeah.
Kinfolk Farm, yes.
All right, so Kinfolk Farm, and then tons of excellent content.
Well,
You've been
you.
putting out so much here lately on Muscadine, I can't keep up with you.
Yeah, well, it's that time of year. I've been trying to do a tip video. I was trying to do one a week, but then I just get bored. I go, hey, I'll throw out 2 this week.
Yeah,
and I don't have no schedule for nothing. So if I see something, I go, oh man, this is something to talk about. I video it and put it out.
And they
but
are
I like
helpful.
the tips. I like the tip videos.
They are absolutely helpful.
Some they already know, but then
I've learned multiple things.
Well, good.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah. So if you haven't checked him out or seen his channel before, I'm just gonna let Shane just tell a little bit about you know, just about where you guys are. You do a U-pick.
Yep,
you know, so several of the folks I'm talking to do a U-pick. So if you're in their area, you know, then that would be an opportunity. So I'm gonna let you give them a plug.
Okay, well, we are Kinfolk Farm. We live in Meriwether County, Georgia, and we do have a U-pick. We have 301 plants, I believe, and I'm about to add 20 something more, about 28 more this year, and then maybe that much more next year on another section. But we have lots of grapes. I'm obsessed with muscadines, and I always say in every video, I'm not a professional grower. I'm a hobby grower, but that's my hobby. I just let it go and just buy more, and just it's my addiction. But we used to raise pigs. I love our quail. We raise a lot of quail. We eat the quail. I love the quail meat. I love the quail eggs. They're some of my favorite foods. And we have a lot of chickens. We just try to basically eat as much as we can off our farm. I mean, we're not the best. First of all, I'm not a good gardener. I can't grow anything, but I can grow muscadines. So my garden stinks every year. But as far as meat, we produce all our own meat. I mean, we shoot all the deer because we're muscadine growers. We shoot all the deer that are legal and try to put back the deer meat. We shoot pig. I mean, we have our own pigs. We used to, but we have tons of pork, and we raise our own meat birds. We have quail, so we just do all that stuff for our meat. And but as far as the U-pick, I got off track. We're open every weekend in September. Friday, Saturday, Sunday in September, we're open, and we got grapes that sustain that whole month. So come on out.
Yeah, sounds good. How the blackberries doing?
They're gone.
You pulled them up.
That's where I'm putting my new muscadines. I bush hogged them.
Shane is the one. If you just bush hog them, they might not be gone for a while.
I had a lot. Oh, we make a lot of wine too. We love our wine.
You're one of the ones who got me into those specific varieties of blackberries.
They did good. But I just wanted more muscadines.
Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted more. I'm obsessed with them. They're just so easy to grow. I've never had disease problems. I've never had no problem. They're just easy to grow. And for the money, I mean, they're just what you should have. You make jelly. My wife makes tons of jelly. I make lots of wine. And of course, we eat grapes every day, all day. And of course, we're trying to make it. We don't make a lot of money, but we try to make a little side income every September, and it does help. It helps to have that little side income. Last year was pretty good. We're hoping to double this year. Last year was our first year open.
People knowing about it too.
Yes,
you know,
grow.
I mean, you can advertise here or there, but sometimes people find a connection somewhere, or sometimes people are willing to drive.
Yeah,
you know, they might be a couple hours from
Tennessee.
Oh wow!
Last year we had one 4 hours, or I think she said she was 4 or 5 hours. And drove
on YouTube?
All the way.
Saw you on YouTube?
Yes, she was a YouTuber too.
Okay.
Growing with Hudson.
Yeah.
Her name was Her channel's Growing with Hudson. Go check her out. But she was super sweet. She came down on the most rainy day that you could possibly have. But we spent about 3 hours walking and talking in the pouring down rain, and it turned out to be super fun. Of course, it stopped raining as soon as they went down the driveway. As soon as they went down the driveway, it stopped raining.
Well, awesome. Well, I didn't know you were over 300 now. So it's a milestone.
301.
Yeah.
301.
Several other.
Some Ruby Crisp.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope your Ruby Crisp might have been an adventure. So I'm looking forward to seeing how yours do.
Yeah.
And anything else just in regards to this event? People should come. Anything else?
Yes, I highly recommend this. Next year, if we can remember to put it online or put it on one of our videos, just an update. If you want to learn about muscadines, this is the place to be. I was surprised the guys, the UGA staff didn't have more questions than what they did. But they give information on just about every variety. A lot of variety, not just about it, but close.
And how they get to some of those.
And how they crossbreed them, all that stuff. It was super interesting, and to be able to try it's hands-on.
And they don't limit you. The only thing you can't eat is if there's flaggers tape and they're trying to keep up with how much fruit it produces just in that little section. And honestly, there aren't many of those out here.
There's not. I mean, I eat grape. I didn't eat breakfast this morning, and I'm full. I eat grapes all day. It was a blast.
Well,
it was a blast.
great.
And learned a lot.
I'm glad you made it, because I know you're huge on muscadines, and we missed you last time we were here, and but just thanks again, and hopefully I can make it down to your way again at some point.
Yeah, I would love to have you out.
Have to coordinate.
Yeah, we'd love to have you out. All you guys, remember, every weekend in September we're open. Check us out on Facebook, YouTube. Leave me a message. I'll give you my address, all that stuff. Come on down.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks, pal.
Yeah, man. Have a good one. All right, guys. So we're here at Tifton, Georgia again, and we're about to wrap things up. This is the absolute best event you can come to in the country if you were looking for information about muscadines and you want to talk to professionals. Dr. Connor and Sarah were absolutely great in regards to information and data, and just being willing to sit down and just talk with you, answer questions, even talk about exactly where and how they've made crosses to get where they're going, the amount of time it takes to get things to production. So if you hear that there's going to be a new variety of muscadine, it still might be a year or 2 years out before we actually get to see it. As you can see behind me, this is where they're actually rooting some muscadine cuttings. This is not exactly easy to do, and I only know of a couple people that have actually been able to do it, but this is one way that once they have those seedlings out and they see what that vigor is and everything, then they put them here and they actually are able to grow them out so that they can then plant them out, grow them out, and see what kind of fruit production they have. It can actually be hundreds of different varieties that they have off of just one different type of seedling that they're getting off of one plant. So definitely want to check this place out if you ever have the opportunity. If not, then definitely check out the videos that we have on this. I'll link some of those here.
You got some good videos hanging across it.
Yeah, no. What they did was the early breeding program. They crossed a male by a female, and they walked the rows and they found Like this is a normally you see that little.
You're good with that.
There,
I wouldn't try a video or two, but I'm just not good at it.
Yeah.
You see the antlers sitting up here. And a male, there'd just be a little nub there. And so they just walked the road and they found one. They had both the long antlers and the piston. Well, no, if you use that as a parent, then you will get that trait. So they use this, crossed it back to a female. Half of them will be female, and half of them perfect.
Nice to meet you. Look forward to talking to you.
No, I do research and I have grad students. I have 3 graduates, but I do not do it. So I'm also doing pecan breeding.
Silver dollar underneath that.
Yeah, I came out of an apple breeding program. I wanted to stay in fruit/tree breeding. The pecan breeding position came open. Nice. And so I was hired just to do pecan breeding. And then in 2004, a grape breeder retired. That was Melville. So Lane added it to the Paulk. That's how I got it.
You did a video.
Yeah, my success. Okay.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. Over here there will be a playlist of videos from this trip to Tifton, Georgia, here at the UGA campus on muscadines, and over here you will actually see a playlist of nothing but muscadine videos. Thanks so much for watching.